Hello and thanks for joining us for another edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Mitchell Ringos. Well, 2 people have died following a highway collision near Nipigon on Tuesday. The Northwest Region OPP confirmed the fatalities in a media release issued the following day. The head-on crash occurred on Highway 17, about 20 kilometers east of Nipigon. OPP say a pickup truck collided with a passenger vehicle at around 3:30 in the afternoon. Police and emergency crews arrived on scene soon afterwards. The 2 drivers were pronounced dead at the scene. OPP say the victims were a 66-year-old woman from Manitouwadge and a 25-year-old from Hawk Junction. The highway was closed for around 8 hours while police investigated the crash. Meanwhile, a pedestrian has died after being struck by a vehicle on Highway 17 in the township of Meishin. Dryden OPP say it happened late Sunday evening, just before 8 o'clock. Police continue to investigate, and they're urging members of the public to wear reflective clothing when walking outdoors after dark. Climate change and the rising cost of transportation are forcing remote First Nations in the region to consider building all-season roads. The Anishinaabe Nation held a 2-day summit in Thunder Bay this week to take a hard look at the issue. Lee Noonan has the details.
Still early days, but planning is underway for a possible all-season road network that would connect remote First Nations in Northern Ontario to the highway system and each other. Nan Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler says climate change is driving remote First Nations to seriously consider the pros and cons of year-round road access.
There's some urgency now to plan for and talk about all-season roads because it's becoming evident over the last few years that winter roads are becoming more and more unreliable and unsafe.
According to Nan, the winter road season has decreased from 77 days on average to as few as 28 days in some locations. Senior research engineer Marina Zhang says that over the past decade, winter temperatures have been warming a few degrees year to year.
Winter roads need cold, need consistent cold, and need predictable cold. So it is one of the most vulnerable modes of transportation because it really needs that climate conditions to be ideal.
As the winter road season is getting shorter, the costs to build and maintain winter roads is increasing. Fiddler says funding models have not kept up, forcing communities to make up the difference. Meanwhile, costs for shipping and travel by air are also increasing. However, First Nations do have serious concerns about roads opening the way for encroachment into their territories by anyone from hunters to mining companies.
It's not just in the Ring of Fire, but it's also in other parts of Dan where these threats are very much real.
Fiddler says jurisdiction over roads is one of the most important issues they'll be tackling. He says the First Nations need to be in the driver's seat.
They need to have the tools and capacity to be able to know who's coming into their territories and why they're there, and for them to be able to pass their own bylaws, to be able to pass their own laws, and that everyone needs to respect once those protocols are in place.
The meetings will continue here through to end of day Thursday, and a report is being produced collecting the conclusions of the attendees here at the conference. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
The Watay power line is continuing to make headway through the remote First Nations of northwestern Ontario. The small First Nation of Wawakapiwin is the latest to celebrate their connection to the power grid. The milestone was marked with a blessing held atop Anemki Waju rather than in the community, which is accessible only by float plane for most of the year. An airport isn't the only major infrastructure lacking in Wawakapiwin. Chief Anne Mary Beardy hopes that having reliable power will finally make it possible to start building.
There's no school in our community. So if we have the school, I think more people would move back. And if we have a nursing station. Those are the main 2 things that we need in the community to get our people back in the community.
The community has struggled for many years because they don't have the capacity with their diesel generators. And now, we're able to bring them power where community can, have essential services.
The old diesel generator didn't have the capacity to reliably power the roughly 20 buildings in the community. Power outages were frequent and could be dangerous due to the lack of health care. Hopes are running high that the Watay line could mean the start of a new era for the remote First Nation. The Ontario government has announced an investment of over $7 million to support Indigenous job seekers in Northern Ontario. Minister of Labour and Skills Development David Piccini was in Thunder Bay this week to make the announcement and says it will help up to 1,700 people prepare for jobs in a variety of in-demand fields. Jessica Clement has the details.
David Piccini, Minister of Labour and Skills Development, stopped by the Ironworkers Local 759 headquarters Wednesday morning to announce an investment focused on training Indigenous people for in-demand jobs.
And we know people are ready and willing to fill those jobs. They just need the right training and a bit of help. And this is why I'm really proud to be here today to announce that our government is investing $7.3 million in 8 innovative training projects right here in Northern Ontario.
The 8 funding recipients located around Northern Ontario are projects focused on training up to 1,700 people in sectors like mining, logging, construction, healthcare, and tourism. One of the projects is led by Ironworkers Local 759. It will help 100 workers and job seekers upgrade their skills to find careers in Northern Ontario's construction industry. The one-year program will be free to participants and help tackle the critical shortage of ironworkers and welders.
So what we're trying to do is create a training center locally and run our apprentice program here. Then nobody has to travel, and we have our own training facility. Currently, we have 6 welding booths. We want to double the size of this and just keep building on from there.
Adam McGilvery, business manager at Ironworkers Local 759, says with the number of projects coming up, the need is there.
So Greenstone Gold is just finishing up. There's other mines that we know of that are going to be popping up. Hopefully one day, maybe the Ring of Fire, Marathon. There's talks of, right now we have the art gallery that's going to happen down at the marina. There's the jails going on. So all those jobs we have to fill.
And local apprentice, ironworker Philip Fournier, has some advice for those who are interested in going into the trades industry.
I highly suggest as well that you jump on that opportunity. Now's the time. The work is opening up. There's more and more coming. Like as we speak, jobs are starting and jobs are happening, and it's a good time to be a tradesperson right now.
Jessica Clement, TBT News.
Groups working to restore water and quality and ecosystem health on Lake Superior are receiving more than $660,000 in funding from Ottawa. Thunder Bay Superior North MP Patty Haidu made the announcement at Lakehead University on behalf of the federal government. Lee Noonan has the details.
Indigenous Services Minister Patty Haidu says she jumped for joy when the Minister of the Environment announced $2.7 million over 3 years to clean up 12 areas of concern along the Great Lakes, including Thunder Bay, Nipigon Bay, Jackfish Bay, and Peninsula Harbor on Lake Superior.
Unfortunately, the lake's seen a lot of abuse over decades and indeed centuries of industrial activity. So there are areas of concern, including this Thunder Bay area, and to have dedicated money focused on protecting the lake and restoring the lake, I think is critically important to really everyone here in the region.
There's just over $663,000 going to 6 projects in the Thunder Bay area of concern. More than half of that amount is going to 2 Lakehead University projects.
This funding is literally for shovels in the ground. We will create artificial wetlands and stormwater ecological developments that will help retain, purify, and release water in a more natural way into the environment, as well as allowing large spaces to be protected or to be revegetated now that they're not being used in some industrial spaces.
The rest of the funding is going to 2 habitat improvement projects, one near the former Superior Fine Papers property and the other along the Nebing-McIntyre River corridor. Also shoreline naturalization and stabilization in Grand Point and Kaministiquia River areas, and a project to study and improve fish migration through the Fishway on the Current River.
First of all, you have to have enough flow to attract fish to enter into the fishway in the first place. And then second to that, they have to have the ability to navigate the internal hydraulic flows within the ladder itself.
Stewart says these projects should help make a noticeable difference to Thunder Bay's waterfront within 10 years and encourages people to keep in mind the decades of work and expense that have gone into repairing industrial damage of the past before embarking on new projects like the proposed Avalon lithium refinery.
I think everybody expects us to do our full due diligence on any kind of industrial activity that could damage land or water. And look, we are interconnected with the land and the water that we live on and near and by, and I think that we owe a duty of care to the next generation.
Haidu says the health of the lake will be on her mind as she and the Minister of Industry meet with Avalon later this week. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
And we'll be back with more on Haidu's lithium refinery tour after the break. Canada's industry minister was in Thunder Bay this week getting a tour of a potential lithium processing site. Francois-Philippe Champagne says he's very excited by what he saw and heard from officials with Avalon Advanced Materials. Jonathan Wilson was along for the tour as well and files this report.
This is a good story.
You need to bring everyone here. This needs to go viral.
The Federal Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry was very impressed with the site on Lake Superior. Avalon purchased the former Smurfit Stone property in June, with ambitious plans to build a lithium processing plant and an adjoining industrial parkway here.
Well, today's a fantastic day. Honorable Minister Champagne, who's been the key architect, frankly, to bring critical mineral supply chains to Canada, is visiting our site.
Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne has been a strong proponent of the federal government's critical mineral strategy and having Canadian lithium mined and processed here in this country for batteries in electric vehicles.
And to see a brownfield site like that where you have all the utilities, electricity, you have gas, you have a port already, but 25 feet deep is already enough to make sure you can bring the products to the market, and also that you have a railway line. Honestly, if I look at the site in Canada, I would say this is one of the most promising I've ever seen in terms of the possibilities.
Avalon has a large high-grade lithium deposit at Separation Rapids near Kenora, which would provide the source material for the processing plant in Thunder Bay. Company President Zishan Syed says the facility could also process lithium from other mining companies in the Northwest.
Of course, Avalon's got a substantial amount of our own lithium deposits in the Kenora region, so we've positioned that to be the initial feed. But we do believe it's a story of lifting all boats, and so we're really hopeful for future partnerships.
MP Marcus Pawlowski convinced Champagne to come see this potential project for himself. Avalon is looking for federal support, and the Liberal politicians say they see a lot of potential here.
We want to benefit from it, not just from the mining, but to be able to do some of the refining and be part of the process of building electric cars. So this presents a tremendous opportunity for us here in Northern Ontario.
We can grow the economy and we can protect the environment together, and that's what this project represents. It represents a growing interest in the need for minerals that will help us transition to cleaner ways to power ourselves, and it's great that Thunder Bay is going to be a player in that space.
Part of what we need is the government to step in and really help start that process with a bit of funding. We're very able to raise the majority of that funding, but it'd be great for the government to come in as well.
If everything goes according to plan, Avalon would have the lithium processing plant up and running in 2028. Syed estimated the price tag at $850 million US, and it would employ around 500 people. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Meanwhile, there's another company with big lithium plans for this region. Green Technology Metals from Australia has chosen the former Cascades mill site in Thunder Bay as the perfect spot to process lithium concentrate. Company CEO Luke Cox says they're also hoping to receive approval to mine lithium at a deposit near Armstrong as soon as possible.
First site is the Seymour project, which is just up there on the northern end of Lake Nipigon. And we're looking to get into first production in 2025. But that's also on the proviso. We've got permitting, Indigenous engagement and First Nation agreements. So 2025 is the planned start date.
The company has a second large lithium deposit near Sioux Lookout, and Cox says they're confident that site could also host a lithium mine. Stage 2 would be a lithium conversion facility on the brownfield site where the BD and Cascades fine paper mill operated for many decades. The massive new plant would take the lithium concentrate processed at the mine sites and convert it into a battery-grade material for electric vehicles. Cox says if everything goes according to plan, the facility could be ready to begin production in 2028, creating hundreds of jobs for area residents.
We're really building up that team in Thunder Bay, and we're starting to develop the teams up at Seymour as well, because that's where our regional hub's going to be. That's where we need the workforce. And also, bringing people in from Thunder Bay, that's like you can do that on a coach. But if you can employ locally, these, they could do a shift at the mine and then they go straight back to their home, see the kids.
Cox says Green Tech has filed an application for federal funding, which is currently being reviewed by officials in Ottawa. Communities in the Rainy River District receive a total of $1.5 million this week from the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund. The investments are meant to improve infrastructure, boost Indigenous culture, and create jobs. Area MPP and Northern Development Minister Greg Rickford made the announcements on Thursday. Big Grassy First Nation is getting $660,000 to upgrade their community center with new roofing and windows, while the community school is getting new playground structures. Big Island First Nation is receiving $375,000 to update their powwow grounds with an upgraded lighting system and seating for 600 people. Another $500,000 will be put into Titan manufacturing facilities in Devlin. The investment will expand its production capacity and nearly double their current number of full-time employees. As progress continues on the development of a new port in Red Rock, local officials are looking to secure funding for a much-needed replacement of a bridge along Highway 628. The road into Red Rock has crossed over the same wooden bridge since it was built during the First World War, but the old bridge won't be up to the task of supporting the industrial loads that will be regularly transported to and from the new port of Red Rock once it's operational.
So a lot of aggregates, we're trying to for salts, bring in salt, haul in aggregates, and haul aggregates out to the south. Very heavy loads, so eventually we'll have to look into fixing the bridge up in town.
It's an old wood bridge. To have consistent weight loads over it is going to be an issue. We know that. We're in planning stages over the last few years. It's been assessed many times. Some repairs will be happening this year. But long-term plan, if there's industry in the area, we're definitely going to need some assistance getting that thing up to par.
Muir says the replacement cost is estimated at between $5 and $10 million. Although the township still has time before they will need to cross that bridge, the dollar figure is prohibitive for the small municipality, and they're already speaking with upper levels of government about financial assistance. Well, construction is finally complete on the Mattawa Education and Care Center in Thunder Bay. We'll be right back with that story. The Mattawa Education and Care Center recently celebrated its grand opening in Thunder Bay. The First Nations High School has been operating throughout years of construction. The facility is now fully and officially open. Lee Noonan has the story.
The Mattawa Education and Care Center fittingly celebrated the construction of the school in their new gym. It was the last piece of the puzzle, and the facility is now complete.
I was only supposed to be about 2 to 3 years, but because of COVID, it delayed it, quite a bit. So it's a long time coming, and I'm very proud of this day, and I'm proud of everyone that, came together and we were able to accomplish this. It's quite amazing.
Sharon Nate, Executive Director of Mattawa Education, says she's particularly proud of the students' tenacity as they patiently waited through years of construction. Students like Dora Ojeg, who started at Mattawa in 2019 and will soon be graduating and heading to college for outdoor education.
If I never came here, I wouldn't have figured out what I want to do with my life, and that's what this school can do, because there's a lot of support and a lot of things you can do, a lot of programs.
With more than 12 hours of programming each school day, 24/7 student supports, and many students living on site, creating a supportive environment is a priority for the school.
It's very lonely when you do not have your family here with you and those supports. So that's very important to us here at the Care Center to have those key elements, to offer the students a safe, nurturing home environment.
I was nervous moving away from home, being away from home, but it feels just like home here. They welcomed me with open arms, and it was amazing. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was, and I fit in perfectly.
The federal government invested a majority of the $23 million cost to build the school. Indigenous Services Minister Patty Haidu says funding projects like this is part of the rent owed by Canada to Indigenous peoples.
When we talk about truth and reconciliation, the truth is that Indigenous peoples were violently traumatized so the land could be taken. It's a hard thing to say out loud. It's a hard thing to say out loud, but we must say it out loud.
The Mattawa Care and Learning Center has a capacity of 200 students with about 160 registered now. They're all looking forward to the first dances, first basketball games, and first graduations to be taking place here over the next year. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
The Dryden Ice Dogs have been one of the hottest teams in the SIJHL at the start of this hockey season. The team has won 6 of their first 7 games, including a sweep of the Thunder Bay North Stars last weekend at Fort William Gardens. Joe Sadowski has the highlights.
In Game 1 of the weekend series, the Ice Dogs came into Fort William Gardens and tallied 4 goals on Thunder Bay netminder Keenan Marks that saw Dryden win 4-2. And for Saturday's tilt, the Ice Dogs were seeking a bit of revenge from last year's semifinals loss at the hands of the North Stars. And minutes into the first period, Thunder Bay was applying a ton of early pressure, but Ice Dogs goaltender Ewan Sodar makes 2 big stops on Nolan Desjardins and Edison Weeks to keep the game scoreless. After those big couple of saves, the Ice Dogs would capitalize on a North Stars turnover, and Max Roby taps home the cross-crease pass to break the deadlock and gives Dryden a 1-0 lead. And the very next shift for Roby, he's wide open at the top of the slot and rips one short side on Marks for his second of the game. After Dryden tacked on another goal, extending their lead to 3, E.J. Paddington would spoil the shutout on the power play with his 4th of the season. But late in the third, Max Roby cashes in on the empty net for the hat trick, and the Ice Dogs would go on to sweep the weekend series with their 4th win in a row and improve their record to 6-1 on the season. 4-1 would be the final.
Honestly, I mean, we have a great group here, really skilled, bunch of skilled guys, and we haven't played to our potential yet. So once we actually come out of the gate and start opening up the floodgates, we're really going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Joe Sadowski, TBT Sports.
And that's all the time we have for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.